Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another random review. Today's random review is from 1949, and it's Alias Nick Beal, starring Ray Milland, Thomas Mitchell, and George McCready. This is a Kino Lorber Blu-ray. This is one of the more bare bones Kino Lorbers. It's just got a commentary by Eddie Muller, who's always very good. And it does have a selection of Ray Milland trailers also available on Kino Lorber. This is a film that I've had in my eBay basket for months because I'm a huge Ray Milland fan. But a friend of the channel, Roger Kirby, did a video on it a few months ago. So I finally got around to actually buying it and watching it fairly immediately. I'll leave a link to Roger's review in the description below. So like I said, this is Ray Milland, directed by John Farrow, who also directed Milland in The Big Clock with Charles Laughton, which is absolutely fantastic, which was later remade with Kevin Costner as No Way Out. Also stars George McCready from Paths of Glory and Gilda, and it also stars Douglas Spencer in a small role, who I never really knew his name, but he's the reporter from The Thing from Another World. He turns up giving a wonderful little edgy performance himself. The print is gorgeous. Kino are one of my favourite kind of labels just for doing odd noirs and westerns and strange little films. Again, their extras are kind of hit and miss sometimes. Sometimes they're absolutely loaded, sometimes they're kind of bare bones, but sometimes it's the film that's the main thing, because these are just such little gems, and this one is really a little gem. So it's about Thomas Mitchell's character, who's a DA who's about to make this career bust of this racketeer, but the corrupt element thinks he just doesn't have enough evidence, and he gets a phone call from this mysterious character asking him to meet on this kind of shadowy bar at a local pier. He turns up and it's Ray Milland, and he has the evidence that will put this criminal away and give him the career bust if he wants it, but there's a price to be paid. But Ray Milland is fairly shifty about what that price actually is. So he finally agrees. He's being talked about as potential governor as well, and his friends amongst whom are George McCready, who's a priest, and he helps him with his charitable work, including a wayward boys gym. And I should say, before he meets Ray Milland, he does just randomly say, I would give my soul if I could put this guy behind bars. But that's wonderfully done. It's not a close-up of him saying it, it's not dramatic music of it saying it just passes in conversation. And then as soon as Ray Milland's character, called Nick Beal, turns up, things start going Thomas Mitchell's way. Beal seems to have information that nobody else has. He seems to be able to keep ahead of the game. He seems to just appear and disappear when he feels like it. He's hard to keep track of, but then suddenly just appears when he's needed. away from Thomas Mitchell's character, we meet Audrey Trotter's character. Totter, sorry. Audrey Totter's character, who's a down on her luck prostitute, basically, even though it's not said she's a prostitute, but she's hanging about bars looking for the company of men. And Nick Beal takes her and says, she can have sapphires and silk, and takes her to this apartment. And she asks, whose apartment is it? It looks like a lady's apartment. She said, and Nick Beal says, yes, it's yours. So all of a sudden, she's getting all this stuff, and it's obviously immediately suspicious, but Nick Beal seems to know her history and the things that happened to lead her to where she is, which is in dire straits. And that changes. She becomes part of Thomas Mitchell's staff, as he has successfully put this criminal away and is now angling for the governor's job. But obviously things start getting out of control. Thomas Mitchell needs Nick Beal's help more and more as he's painted into a corner. So for example, the books that they found, Douglas Spencer's character, Mr. Finch, who's the bookkeeper, says he burned those books, and now that's the books that Thomas Mitchell's character turned in to make the big bust. And then Mr. Finch dies in somewhat suspicious circumstances, and as usual in these kind of stories, Thomas Mitchell character is being plummeted. No, that's the opposite of plummeting. Is skyrocketing towards the governorship. Meanwhile, he's got all these skeletons that Nick Beal is cleaning up and tidying away and hiding in cupboards. But then the payment has to be made, and you can kind of figure out what's going on, and perhaps how it will end. But the film is just so beautifully shot. It's down at the pier. Fog plays an important part. It's beautifully shot, beautifully played. Ray Milland, who has always got shifty eyes and always looks guilty, makes really good use of his eyes in this. You can see a lot that Jack Nicholson probably borrowed from Ray Milland. I mean, if The Shining had been made in 1960, Ray Milland would have been ideal as Jack Torrance. And also he really plays up his physique, his stature in this film. The scenes where he's standing between Thomas Mitchell's character and his wife as a physical and psychological barrier. He just kind of looks at people if they're beginning to get a little bit uppity. He just kind of looks at them and they just shut down. He really uses his physique well, as his famous shifty eyes. Milan's having an absolute ball. McCready, in a different kind of role, actually is a good guy, is really good as the priest, as he kind of figures out perhaps what's going on, which of course Thomas Mitchell poo-poos and says this is the 20th century and those kind of things don't exist, but eventually he kind of comes round to the possibility that there is something a little bit devious going on. It's just beautifully played, beautifully shot. It's only 93 minutes, doesn't need to be any longer. It rattles along. Ray Milland's having a ball, like I say, and it's an absolute joy. If you're a Ray Milland fan, it's a must purchase, even if you're not. If you like the perhaps Mephistophelian Deal films, it's a really fun one, and it's just so well done and so well performed. There's lots of lovely little lines in it. At one point McCready asks Ray Milland whether he's ever been painted because his face seems familiar. And Ray Milland says, yeah, Rembrandt painted me in 1655. And there's lots of other little digs at one point at the boys' club. George McCready tries to get Ray Milland to read something out of the Bible. And it's just wonderful as he's backing away, and he's like, no, that's your book. I'm not too keen on that. Lots of good stuff. And Eddie Muller commentary is always worth a listen. So that's Alias, Nick Beal. If you're a Ray Milland fan, I would highly urge picking it up. And if you just like little noirs with a different little twist, it's well worth checking out. So thanks very much for watching this random review. Please let me know if you've seen Alias, Nick Beal and what you thought of it. Again, I'll leave Roger Kirby's link to his review of Alias, Nick Beal in the description. And hopefully you'll join me again for more random reviews. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.